This may be the dumbest idea I've ever had. But hey, it's my YouTube channel, so I'm doing it. The idea that I want to do today will take a little explanation, so please bear with me, or if you're already familiar with the concept of an all-NBA team, then skip to this part of the video. Alright, so I am a huge NBA fan. My favorite two teams are the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls. So unfortunately for me, I'm in hell this season. I've been watching for a few years now, and something I look forward to, like many other fans, is the end of the year awards. These are all things that most normal people should be familiar with in some regard. Most improved player, most valuable player, rookie of the year, things like that can also be applied to other parts of life. The NBA, however, has another honor given out to 15 players every single year, being named to an all-NBA team. There is an all-NBA first team, second team, and third team, and these slots are voted on and given out to the best or most impactful players each season. I'm sure many of you can see where this is going, but as a bit more fun exposition, a few years ago, I watched the grand finals of the biggest Valorant tournament in the world. After the finals concluded, a Valorant reporter made all Valorant Masters teams, giving out this same award format to the best performing players of the tournament. I've always liked that idea personally, and I thought it was a super neat concept to apply to other things. So today, we will be creating the all HSR teams. 15 characters who I feel are the most deserving of being named the best in their roles. Let's begin. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It helps out a lot and I really do appreciate it. Alright, back to the video. I'm coming back to the top of my script here to briefly mention, this was perhaps one of the hardest things I've done for this channel. The actual teams are definitely going to have some people up in arms, but please know I did my best and consulted numerous people to try and reach these outcomes. So, we're going to get a few semantics out of the way before we start naming characters, and ideally, list out some criteria. Something I want to know early on is how these teams will be formed. The NBA just eliminated the rule where players of every position have to make it on a team. An example would be LeBron James being a forward, but only 2 forwards can make it on each team. I personally will be following that older method, since I think it'll be a bit more fun. It'll also make this significantly easier for me because I can already guarantee this video is gonna be hell. How I've decided to split up each team will be 2 DPS characters, 2 supports, which can be Harmony or something like Silverwolf or Pela since they are debuffers naturally, and 1 sustain. There are a lot of good sustains in this game, so putting them at a lower number doesn't exactly feel fair, but when adding the 3 Nihility debuffers to the Harmony cast, the amount of characters is tied at 12 each. With Sunday's arrival, it'll become 13, and Fugue, who can also be considered a support, will bring that number to 14. It's unfortunate, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, sadly. Moving on from that, I want to talk about my criteria. I do not care how difficult a character is to use or build around for the most part. What I care about is how well you can do in a good situation. Keep in mind here, I say good, not perfect or 100% optimal. I'm giving some leeway because I know comments will come for me later. So for someone like Acheron per se, I am going to assume that Acheron will have Pela and Zhao Cho alongside Aventurine to create her best conventional team lineup. I won't be factoring signature light cone performance as much since that drastically alters some characters, and Eidolons will be excluded for non-4 stars as well. Eidolons are a very powerful thing that can once again drastically change performance, and I do like to always try and cater my videos and opinions to the many free-to-play players out there. Even having all 4 of those limited 5 stars is difficult, but it is technically realistic with the gap between patches. It's not the most impossible thing to do. However, all of those plus light cones? Yeah, no, not so much. That one's not as likely. I think with that said, that's just about everything we need to go over to get into the video. So before we get into the third team, let's first knock out the all HSR snub team. Our very first team of the video consists of Rappa, Kafka, Pela, Tingyun, and Huohuo. Now something I want to address immediately is how difficult this team of honorable mentions was. These are the leftover characters. It shouldn't be that hard, right? Wrong! I spent a good amount of time debating between Kafka, Topaz, and Black Swan. Rappa was a hard choice for a little while, but she is too good to not be here, and I can actually see people having her even higher since she is more multi-talented than someone like Boothill or Ratio. The key difference for Boothill and Ratio placing higher, spoiler, they're coming up soon, was due to how I think they perform better in non-pure fiction game modes compared to Rappa. And while she smokes them in that specific game mode, I do value them a little bit higher in the other two endgame content modes. Going back to the other characters, it's hard to deliberately pick between those three. Topaz and Black Swan, from my experience, are rarely the centerpiece of someone's team. These two characters are built as perfect sub-DPS or dual DPS characters, designed to be played with someone of equal or greater value than them. Kafka, on the other hand, is, like I always mention, designed as the engine to a team, not a normal part of it. The philosophy between rewarding characters who are the best of a team and excel in that role, compared to characters who work more universally, is very, very difficult. I've opted to give it to Kafka this time around, but yeah, I was very much willing to give this spot to Topaz, and I decided on this because, quite frankly, I lost too much time sweating this one specific choice on a non-essential aspect of my video. Moving on to the supports, Tingyun and Pela are the 4 stars that every single player should try to E6 as soon as possible. Easy to get, incredibly powerful, they still work at high levels, and are fairly simple and rewarding to build. There are a few characters who are better than these two, but many who are significantly worse. The last slot we end on is our 4th place sustain, Huohuo. The sustain choices were genuinely brutal. Leaving Gallagher off this list feels sad, but it is always hard to argue against 5-star characters. Going back to Huohuo, her versus Fu Xuan was probably one of the top 2 hardest choices I had to make for this video. We won't hear about the other one for a while. Both are great sustains obviously, and they both work in similar scenarios. Yes, Fu Xuan crit is useless for break teams, and while energy regen is nice, super break doesn't scale with attack, so Huohuo loses significant value for those teams as well. Both are solid choices for follow-up based comps as well, so the biggest difference would be Huohuo being superior for DOT teams, who sadly aren't meta right now.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
Despite how excellent Huohuo is offensively and how solid her sustainability is, I feel safer with Fu Xuan keeping my party up, and that's the main reason why I have Huohuo at this spot. Just about every good sustain right now can be 2nd place, so I'm gonna be honest, the ordering for everyone besides the number 1 sustain is essentially a formality. If you feel Huohuo is 2nd, then please by all means have her there. I will not argue with you in the slightest. With that wrapped up, now we can finally move into our all HSR 3rd team. And here we will find Dr. Ratio, Boothill, Sparkle, Bronya, and Fu Xuan. We've essentially already knocked out the Fu Xuan conversation, so I'll reiterate things real quick. She's amazing at what she does, performs well with many teams simply because she doesn't need many skill points, and offers a helpful buff that can be utilized by many top characters and teams currently. Fu Xuan will continue to be a competent and helpful sustain option for a very long time. Next up on the chopping block is Ratio and Boothill. Starting with Boothill, he may genuinely have one of the highest damage outputs in the game if played correctly. He benefits from Harmony Trailblazer like most break characters, but is one of the few to not actually need Super Break to succeed. His best teams contain characters like Ron May, of course, but also Pela or Bronya, who are able to enhance his speed or absolutely destroy enemy defense. Boothill is an incredible break character, and I've never met anyone who actually regrets getting him instead of someone like Firefly or Rappa. Moving on to Dr. Ratio, I think I'm still a bit higher on him than others, but I stand by it still. Follow-up has gotten some of the most support in the game lately, and even with that likely coming to an end soon, Ratio is still an incredible character at this moment. He has an incredible damage output, a unique playstyle that works with a surprising amount of characters despite the restriction of needed debuffs, and is fairly easy to build following the traditional crit build style. Most players got the free Dr. Ratio that was offered, and I can only say it so many times, but if you need another DPS or want to switch things up, I cannot recommend Ratio enough. One of his best characters just came out recently too, in Moz. Ratio is definitely overshadowed pretty heavily by Fei Xiao nowadays, but don't let that fool you into thinking he is not perfectly capable. People clear MOC with base Don Hung, for Christ's sake. You can make the smart Greek outfit man work. Now we arrive at the first of the top 6 supports in the game, Sparkle and Bronya. It's pretty funny that these two characters ended up next to each other since they functionally serve the exact same purpose. Sparkle is supposed to be the better version of Bronya nowadays, considering the additional skill points as well as the higher amount of crit damage just given by Sparkle's skill, but Bronya has managed to persist regardless. Her having the ability to fully advance forward an ally compared to Sparkle only doing 50% is extremely impactful, especially for characters like Boothill, as mentioned earlier. Also, it's not like Bronya's damage boost is bad either. A 66% damage increase from skill, and then probably a 40% crit damage boost on average comboed with another 55% damage boost on top of that from ult is still extremely powerful. As for Sparkle, yeah, more crit damage is a drug, and as much as I hate Sparkle, I gotta respect the hustle. The more interesting note is that Sparkle had a real chance to move to second team because of how powerful she is. When it comes to the characters chosen above her, you'll hear why I made the choice I did, but she definitely has an argument to move up. Bronya, on the other hand, is pretty comfy down here, and while I do think Pela is also incredibly strong and deserving of the higher slot, Bronya can be used in every insane team comp under the sun, and that sort of creativity and ability to make random and crazy ideas work should be rewarded. Now that I've already teased a decent few of the selections, let's finally move on to the All HSR second team. So, the All HSR second team is kind of the home to many of my personal underrated and forgotten characters. And Fei Xiao. Her too. On this team, we have Fei Xiao and Yun Li as our DPS, Jiao Cho and Harmony MC as our supports, and lastly, we have Ling Sha as our second best sustain in the game. Starting once again with the sustain choice, I think Ling Sha is still being just a little slept on. This is a character who can do almost everything at a high level. You want a follow-up sustain to work with Fei Xiao? Ling Sha has got you. You want a break character to enhance Firefly or Boothill? Ling Sha. You just want an amazing healer in general? Ling Sha has got it under control. She is a fantastic character who works with the 2 best team types right now and scales off of attack, so she won't be doing pitiful damage overall either. She is yet another offensive-minded support character who thrives in the current metagame, and I feel that she should be rewarded for that. She is probably not touching that top slot anytime soon though. You all know why if you've seen my sustain video. Let's now move on to my DPS choices. These would be Fei Xiao and Yun Li. I like Fei Xiao a lot, and I constantly use her on my own team, so I've already said a lot about her in the past. We'll instead start with Yun Li, who is in my camp of forgotten and underrated characters. Yun Li is a strong character in all 3 game modes with her ability to devastate multiple foes at once with her counter. She does a high amount of damage per attack, and with her ability to taunt and restore her own HP, she becomes significantly better than the next best counter unit in Clara. While no one I personally know has Yun Li, I constantly see her clearing hard content with ease, with numerous different characters supporting her. Once again, not a fan of Yun Li, but her effectiveness simply cannot be denied. Moving on to Fei Xiao, she is probably one of my favorite characters in the game currently, and it was unbelievably hard to put her down here. We will talk about that later. She is incredibly fun to use, has a wonderful story, and oh, right, let me make this clear for everyone. She hits like a damn truck. Fei Xiao is the best follow-up DPS in the game right now, and with follow-up at its peak, there aren't many characters better than her in general. She has an insanely powerful ultimate, amazing damage scaling with her traces giving her additional crit damage, and when using the newest follow-up set with the Duran Planar set, she is an absolute demon to deal with. This doesn't even consider how much stronger she gets when paired with someone like Robin, who enhances her attack even more. While not having Fei Xiao's ideal characters hurt her a bit, she still works well with a lot of different options. These can include Jiao Cho, March, Moz, Topaz, Robin, Sparkle, Aventurine, Ling Sha, Fu Xuan, and a few others. The only lacking area for Fei Xiao is in Pure Fiction, and as someone who has used Fei Xiao in Pure Fiction, she's honestly still pretty decent for it. A superpowered character that once again reminds us of the ever-growing chill in our back known as power creep. Thanks, Fei Xiao! Now, it's time to finally talk about our two support characters, Jiao Qiu and Harmony Trailblazer. Jiao Qiu is currently the best defense shredder in the game. His percent is extremely high, and on top of that, he has an incredible AoE ability with his skill and his ultimate. His ultimate is also supremely helpful considering it increases ultimate damage dealt, which is pretty good for, a few characters. While I do think the conventional damage buffs provided by other characters are extremely good, Jiao Qiu is making a consistent presence in many team comps and has only received more use over time since the last time I talked about him. Like it or not, he will be here to stay for a good while. Moving on to the Trailblazer, the reactions to my placement were quite different from person to person. Some thought I had him too low, and some thought I had him too high. This Harmony form causes a decent bit of division, and it's pretty understandable why. He doesn't offer the traditional damaging buffs that Harmony characters are known for, nor is he an absolute speed or action advanced demon. His entire kit revolves around Break, and that means your team already has to be built for Break. While yes, you can just add him to any lineup, and as long as the enemy weakness can be broken, he can be helpful, but he loses a good deal of value that way. The reason why I give the Trailblazer such a high nod is because, as I've stated in the past, weaponizing an entire team means a lot to me, especially a team as good as the optimal Firefly team. He is also essential for Rappa usually, and a very nice boost for Boot Hill. These are premier damage characters who are all on this list, and guess what? Harmony Trailblazer is amazing for all of them. Maybe not as universally helpful as other Harmony characters, but with a peak this high and this important, I don't see any reason to have him below any of the other supports we've talked about today. Also, he absolutely serves, so I feel like that should get him a nice bonus point or two somewhere in there. And now, after way too long quite frankly, we reach the end of my list with the all HSR first team. These are the 5 characters who I think are the absolute top of their respective roles with very little explanation needed. I will explain anyway. Starting off at our DPS, we have none other than Acheron and Firefly. At supports, we have Robin and Ron May. Last but not least, Aventurine is our top sustain. In a previous scripted video, I talked at length about Aventurine, and while yes, I definitely hyped him up a lot for content purposes, he is still far and away the best sustain right now. He's incredibly strong in almost every team comp, has incredible defensive prowess, and is able to consistently help your offense through a combination of his follow-up attacks and his debuffing ult. Aventurine is incredible, and if you can get him for his next rerun, you should do so. No one has ever regretted that choice, and I doubt they will for a very, very long time. Next up, let's talk about Acheron and Firefly at our DPS slots. They're amazing, plain and simple. Firefly is a nightmare for any enemy with her ability to fire implant on her foes. She's absolutely devastating when working with her best teams and is the pioneer of Super Break meta alongside the Harmony Trailblazer. With the relative ease it takes to build her, with her ideal planar set increasing speed, which is her second most important stat, and 2 of her best supporting characters being free to play friendly, there is no reason not to get Firefly if you can. She is an incredible character who likely won't fall off for ages and is always going to be able to do her job efficiently. Moving on to Acheron, she is the confusing case I mentioned earlier. If you want Fei Xiao at this slot, I will not complain, as they are the top 3 overall DPS in the game as of right now. Content has been favoring a lot of break and follow-up teams more recently, which has meant Acheron has kind of been pushed from the spotlight quite a bit. While I personally have stopped using Acheron as much to experiment with the other 2 team comps, don't get it twisted. Acheron is one of the most brutal DPS in the game. Her ult is incredibly powerful, she is an AoE monster with her skill also hitting multiple targets for high damage, and she has resistance penetration to keep her damage output high consistently on that ult. She is the top tier who I think requires her specific best characters the most, but again, this list is looking at ideal situations for characters. And in that ideal situation, yeah, Acheron is disgustingly strong in every single form of content this game has to offer. If you already have a built Pela, which hopefully you should, she's amazing, and a decent sustain like Aventurine or Gallagher, get on board the Acheron train as fast as you can. You will probably not regret your choice. If you can get 2 Eidolons for her though, you will actually never experience sorrow again, more than likely, I'm just saying. Lastly, we arrive at the 2 supports on this team, Robin and Ron May. Robin gives one of the highest damage increases in the game, alongside an amazing action advance that makes achieving the pinnacle of this game to many, the Zero Cycle, significantly easier. On top of that, Robin is one of the easiest characters to build, with her reward being so insanely immense. You literally need over 120 speed, and then as much attack as humanly possible. That's it. Get Robin. Get her at all costs. She will be this good forever, more than likely. Last but not least, Ron May. The best break support in the game, who significantly increases break efficiency. She has an ult that will keep enemies broken for even longer, and she even boosts speed to make sure a character like Firefly has more turns to do more break damage. She works for normal comps as well, with her skill giving at least a 32% damage boost for your entire team. Versatility matters, and Ron May is undoubtedly a queen of all trades. Use her however you like, your team and your Jade counter will be thankful for it more than likely. With that last team out of the way, we've finally done it. We've completed the all HSR teams. And boy oh boy, did this suck! I thought this would be a fun variant to a traditional tier list, and I can say with confidence, this was absolutely brutal to come up with and make. So many characters have arguments to be over each other, and situation matters a lot in Star Rail, unlike some other gacha games. Acheron vs Fei Xiao was something multiple people pressed me about. Which DPS would get the snub honors was, I think, 2 hours straight of discussion. Harmony MC and his placement, alongside deciding between every single sustain. It was all brutal. This has taken a while, but I really hope it turned out to be worth it in the end. These scripted videos have been bringing the most out of me creatively, and I'm having a great time with this style, so I really hope you guys have enjoyed it too. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you look forward to my future videos. I'll see you guys next time.